I remember thinking, this is the happiest day of my life, right as my best friend lifted my veil and whispered, "You're finally a wife." The room smelled like roses and hairspray, and my hands were shaking so badly she had to steady them while she fixed the clasp on my bracelet. I laughed it off. Brides shake, don't they? That's what people say. Nerves, love, anticipation. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that the woman holding my bouquet that morning was already my husband's wife. That day began the way I had always imagined it would. Soft sunlight through the hotel curtains, the hum of women moving around the suite, the low clink of coffee cups, the rustle of garment bags, the quiet music someone had playing from their phone. I sat in front of the mirror in a white robe, staring at a version of myself I barely recognized, calm on the surface, glowing even but tight around the eyes. My best friend Leela had insisted on being there early. She always did that, showed up first, stayed latest. We'd known each other since college, shared dorm rooms, secrets, heartbreaks. When my mother passed, it was Leela who slept beside me for weeks, her back to mine like we were girls again. "You okay?" she asked. Meeting my eyes in the mirror, I nodded. "Just, can you believe this?" She smiled, but there was something careful about it. Measure I didn't notice then. I only remember how warm her hands felt when she squeezed my shoulders. "You deserve this," she said. After everything. Those words meant so much to me at the time. I met Daniel 3 years before that wedding. He was charming in a quiet way, not flashy, not loud. The kind of man who listened when you spoke and remembered small things, like how you took your tea or which songs made you cry. He worked in logistics for a regional company, traveled occasionally, but not enough to make me suspicious. Or lonely. I was in my late 30s then, divorced once, cautious but hopeful. I didn't want fireworks anymore. I wanted stability. Someone steady. Daniel seemed like an answered prayer. He met Leela about 6 months into our relationship. I remember that dinner clearly. We sat at my favorite little Italian place, the one with mismatched chairs and candles that always dripped wax onto the tables. Leela wore a green dress that night, hugged Daniel a little longer than necessary, and told him, "I've heard so much about you." He smiled politely. Maybe too politely. Later, when she excused herself to the restroom, he leaned in and said, "She's intense." I laughed. "She's protective. She means well." He nodded, but his jaw tightened. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself that a lot back then. Our engagement happened quietly. No crowd, no kneeling in public. Just the two of us in his apartment, rain tapping against the windows, a simple ring he said he'd picked because it felt like me. I called Leela first. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "Oh my God," she said, breathless. "I knew it. I knew he was the one." Looking back, I realize how often she said things like that. "I knew." As if she'd been watching something unfold long before I thought it had even begun, but at the time it felt comforting, like someone was rooting for me. The months leading up to the wedding were busy, full. Dress fittings, guest lists, late night calls about table settings and flowers. Daniel stayed mostly hands-off, which I appreciated. "Whatever makes you happy," he'd say, kissing my forehead before heading out for work. Sometimes, though, he'd disappear for hours without explanation. His phone would go straight to voicemail. When he came back, he'd say he'd been tied up with work or helping a friend. A friend. I asked once, lightly. "Yes," he said too quickly. "An old friend." I didn't push. I didn't want to be that woman, suspicious, nagging, insecure. I had promised myself I would trust until given a reason not to. Leela, on the other hand, asked more questions. "Doesn't it bother you," she said one afternoon as we tasted cakes, "that he's so vague?" I shrugged. "He's private," she hummed, pressing her lips together. "Just be careful." I remember feeling a flicker of irritation. "You're supposed to be happy for me," I thought. I didn't say it out loud, but I felt it. Funny how instincts try to speak to us through other people, and we silence them because they don't sound like what we want to hear. The morning of the wedding, Leela was everywhere, fixing my hair, adjusting my dress, fetching water when I forgot to drink. She knew exactly what I needed before I asked. At one point, she knelt in front of me to adjust the hem of my gown. Her hands trembled. I joked about it. "Relax," I said. "You're not the one getting married." She looked up at me then, her eyes glossy. "I just want everything to be perfect," she said. I reached for her hand. "It is." Down the hall, I could hear laughter from the groomsmen's suite. Daniel's laugh, unmistakable, rising above the rest. It made my heart lift. If someone had told me then, right then, that the man waiting at the altar already had a legal wife, that the woman zipping me into my dress shared his last name, I don't know if I would have believed them. Sometimes betrayal wears the face of love so convincingly you mistake it for safety. As the coordinator knocked to signal it was time, Leela stood behind me and fastened my necklace. Her breath brushed my ear. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "you're strong, don't forget that." I smiled, thinking she was being sentimental. I had no idea she was saying goodbye. The doors opened. Music swelled. I took my first step forward, carrying a future I believed was honest. And behind me, my best friend wiped away a tear, already knowing how this story would end. The ceremony itself passed in a soft blur, like a dream you only half remember when you wake up. I remember the warmth of Daniel's hands when he took mine, the way his thumb brushed my knuckles, slow and familiar. The sound of my own voice when I said, "I do," steady and clear, as if my body believed what my heart had been promised. I remember scanning the guests as I walked back down the aisle, married now, smiling until my cheeks hurt. Faces beaming, my aunt dabbing her eyes. Leela standing near the front, clapping politely, her smile small and tight. I thought she was overwhelmed with emotion. I didn't know she was holding herself together. The reception was everything we'd planned. Golden light spilling through the windows, the soft clatter of plates, laughter rising and falling like waves. Daniel danced with my mother's sister, spun my niece around until she squealed, leaned in close to me and whispered, "We did it. We did it." Those words felt like a victory. Leela stayed close all evening. Too close, maybe. She hovered at my elbow, corrected waiters, adjusted my train again and again. When Daniel came to kiss me, she'd step back quickly, eyes down like she didn't want to be seen. At one point, while Daniel was pulled away by his coworkers, Leela handed me a glass of champagne. "Drink," she said softly. "You need it." I laughed. "You're acting like I'm going into battle." Her lips parted, then pressed together. "Marriage can feel like that sometimes." I waved her off. "You're so dramatic." She didn't smile. Our wedding night was quiet. Daniel said he was exhausted. Too much excitement, too many people. We lay in bed, still dressed in pieces of the day, my hair half pinned, his tie draped over a chair. He kissed my forehead and turned away sooner than I expected. I told myself it was normal. Long day, big emotions. I slept with a smile on my face. The first few weeks of marriage were fine. Not magical, not terrible, just fine. Daniel moved some things into my house, but not everything. "I'll bring the rest later," he said. No rush. He still took long calls outside. Still traveled without much notice. Sometimes he slept poorly, pacing the bedroom before dawn, checking his phone with a frown. I asked him once if something was wrong. "It's just work," he said. "You know how it is." I nodded even though I didn't. My job was steady. Predictable. His always seemed to exist somewhere just out of reach. Undefined and untouchable. Leela checked in constantly. "How's married life?" she asked, her voice bright, almost forced. "It good?" I said. "Different, but good." She paused. "Treating you right?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course, good," she said. "That's good." After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at my phone, feeling unsettled without knowing why. The first real crack appeared on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel had gone out early, said he had errands to run. I spent the morning cleaning, folding laundry, humming to myself. When I went to put away his clothes, I noticed something strange in the pocket of his jacket. A receipt, hotel stationery, local, dated 2 weeks before our wedding. My heart skipped, then settled. Bachelor party, I told myself. Last fling of freedom. Even as the thought made my stomach turn, I clung to it because it was easier than anything else. That night, I asked him gently, "Oh, that?" He said, barely glancing up from his phone. "I stayed over after a late meeting." "Why didn't you tell me?" He shrugged. "Didn't think it mattered." Something about his tone, dismissive, almost annoyed, made me feel small. I dropped it. Over the next month, the signs multiplied, small but persistent. A lipstick mark on his collar he blamed on a coworker's hug. A text notification he flipped away too quickly. A weekend trip he canceled at the last minute, claiming a family obligation he never explained. And always, Lilo in the background, watching, asking careful questions, offering vague warnings wrapped in concern. "Sometimes people aren't who we think they are," she said once, stirring her coffee slowly. "Love can make us blind." I stared at her. "Are you trying to tell me something?" She looked up, startled. "No, of course not. I just worry about you." I wanted to believe her. I needed to. The truth didn't come crashing down all at once. It seeped in, slow and cold, like water through a crack in the wall. It started with a name. I was scrolling through Daniel's social media one evening, something I rarely did, when I noticed a woman had liked several of his older photos. Her name was familiar. Too familiar. Leela, not my Leela. The Leela, same first name, different face. I clicked her profile. Her cover photo stopped my breath. It was Daniel, standing beside her, arms around her waist. Both of them dressed casually, smiling at the camera like people who belonged together. The date on the photo was 3 years ago. My chest tightened. I scrolled further. Anniversary posts, inside jokes. A picture of a simple gold band on her finger, captioned "Forever started today." The date matched exactly 1 year before I met him. I sat there frozen, my finger hovering over the screen, my mind refusing to connect the dots it was laying out so clearly. There has to be an explanation, I thought. There always is. I closed the app and waited for Daniel to come home. When he walked through the door, humming softly, I knew something had changed. Not in him, in me. "Who is she?" I asked, holding up my phone. He stopped mid-step. "Who?" "This woman," I said. "The one you've been married to for years." The color drained from his face. "I can explain," he said too quickly, the same words every guilty person reaches for when they've run out of lies. "Explain what?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my effort to keep it calm. "That I married a man who already had a wife." He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair. "It's complicated." I laughed, then a short, broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "No," I said. "It's not. It's illegal." He sank into a chair, suddenly small, suddenly tired. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" I asked. "Before or after you finished ruining my life?" Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. And in that silence, one thought rose above all the others, sharp and devastating. How long has Lila known? I didn't sleep that night. Daniel tried to talk, kept saying my name softly, as if gentleness could rewind time. But I locked myself in the guest room and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Every sound in the house felt louder than it should have been. The refrigerator humming. A car passing outside. My own breath, shallow and uneven. By morning, I had made one quiet decision. I was going to find out exactly how deep the betrayal went. Daniel left early, claiming he needed to clear his head. I didn't stop him. The moment the door closed behind him, I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered over Leela's name. For years, she had been my first call, my safe place, the person who knew my secrets and held my hand through my worst moments. I called her anyway. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, married lady?" The words landed like a slap. "Leela," I said carefully, "I need to ask you something." There was a pause. Just a fraction of a second. But I heard it. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Do you know a woman named Lila?" I said. "Who's married to Daniel?" Silence. Not the confused kind. Not the "I don't know what you're talking about" kind. The kind that tells you everything before a word is spoken. She started, then stopped. My chest tightened. "How long?" Her voice broke. "Please don't do this over the phone." "How long?" I repeated, louder now. Another pause. Then barely a whisper. "Since before you met him." "You knew," I said. "You stood next to me. You fixed my dress." "I never meant for it to go this far," she said quickly, words tumbling over each other. "He told me they were separated. He said the marriage was over, just paperwork." I believed him. "Enough to attend my wedding?" I asked. "Enough to smile at me while I married your husband." She began to cry, real sobs this time. "I loved him. The world seemed to tilt me." I asked. "Did you love me?" Her crying softened, turned quiet. "I didn't know how to stop it." That was her answer. I hung up without another word. For a long time I sat there, my phone resting face down on the table, as if it might burn me. I felt hollow, like something essential had been scooped out of my chest and left behind. Two people I trusted most. Two separate betrayals, braided together so tightly I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I stood up, went to the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked older. Not broken, just changed. "I see you," I whispered. "I see what you're capable of surviving." Over the next few days, I moved quietly, deliberately. I gathered documents, marriage records, screenshots, messages. I discovered that Daniel had never divorced his first wife, Leela, from the photos. My best friend had known him through his second life. She'd believed she was the real one, just as I had. He had been juggling two worlds with practiced ease. I met with a lawyer, calm, professional. She explained my options, the words annulment and fraud hanging heavy in the air. "He committed bigamy," she said plainly. "You are not legally married." The words stung, but they also freed something inside me. If I wasn't his wife, I didn't have to protect him. Daniel tried to apologize. I was afraid of losing you, he said one evening standing in my kitchen like a stranger. I didn't want to hurt anyone. You hurt everyone, I replied. You just didn't want to be alone. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. I want to fix this, he said. There is no fixing this, I said quietly. Only facing it. I asked Leela to meet me. She arrived looking pale, eyes swollen from crying. We sat across from each other in a small cafe, the same one where we used to plan trips and dream about the future. I'm sorry, she said before I could speak. I swear I didn't know you didn't know. You watched me marry him, I said. You watched me promise my life to a lie. She looked down. I thought if I could stay close, I could protect you. I let out a bitter laugh. From what? The truth. She reached across the table. I didn't take her hand. You didn't just betray me, I said. You erased me. You let me build a future on quicksand. Tears streamed down her face. What do you want me to do? I considered that question carefully. I want you to tell the truth, I said. To everyone, including his first wife. Her head snapped up. She doesn't know about you. No, I said. And she deserves to. The confrontation happened a week later. We met at Daniel's first wife's home. The three of us standing on her porch, strangers bound by one man's lies. When she opened the door and saw Daniel, her face hardened. Then she saw me. Then Lila, the story spilled out in fragments. Dates, lies. Overlapping promises. When the truth finally settled, the silence was unbearable. She didn't scream, she laughed. A sharp, broken sound. I knew it, she said. I knew something was wrong. She looked at me then, eyes softening. I'm so sorry. That was when I cried for the first time. The fallout was swift. Daniel's job found out. His family found out. Friends distanced themselves. Lies don't survive sunlight. I filed for an annulment. Clean. Final. Leela and I never spoke again after that day. Some friendships don't end in shouting. They end in quiet understanding that trust, once shattered, doesn't return to its original shape. A's for Daniel. He tried to call. To text. To apologize again. I blocked him. Some doors don't need to be closed loudly. They just need to stay shut. And in the stillness that followed, I began to hear myself again. In the weeks after everything came out, my life grew strangely quiet. No constant buzzing of my phone. No anxious waiting for Daniel's car in the driveway. No late night calls from Leela asking if I was okay in that careful voice she used when she already knew the answer. At first, the silence felt heavy. Like standing in a house after the furniture has been removed. You're grateful for the space, but every sound echoes. I moved through my days slowly, deliberately. I went to work. I cooked simple meals. I took long showers and let the water run until my fingers wrinkled, as if I could rinse the betrayal off my skin. But even in the quiet, my mind wasn't peaceful yet, because the truth hadn't fully landed in the world, not really. The annulment process moved faster than I expected. Paperwork, signatures, legal language that tried to turn heartbreak into bullet points. This confirms you were never legally married, the clerk said kindly, sliding the document across the counter. Never married. I stared at the words and felt something unexpected, relief. The wedding photos were still up on my walls. The dress still hung in the back of my closet, wrapped in plastic, smelling faintly of perfume and hotel soap. Evidence of a life that had almost been mine. I took the photos down first. One by one, I lifted the frames, noticing details I'd missed before. The way Daniel's smile never quite reached his eyes. The way Lila's body angled toward him, even in group shots, I didn't cry. I just packed them away. Healing, I was learning, didn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looked like choosing not to bleed over things that were already dead. The public reckoning came quietly, but it came. Someone posted about Daniel online, a vague warning at first, then comments, then names, screenshots surfaced. Stories overlapped, people talk. Especially when they realized they've been fooled. His family called me, one by one. His sister cried. I had no idea, she said. None of us did. His mother was quieter. I'm sorry you were pulled into this, she said. Not I'm sorry my son did this. Just that. I accepted what was offered. Nothing more. At work, people were careful around me. Soft voices, avoiding questions. A few women pulled me aside. I went through something similar, one whispered. If you ever need to talk. That surprised me most of all. How many people recognized themselves in my story. Betrayal isn't rare. It's just often hidden behind smiles. The hardest moment came when I ran into Leela unexpectedly. It was at the grocery store of all places. I was reaching for a carton of eggs when I heard my name spoken the way only she ever said it. Soft, familiar. I turned. She looked thinner. Tired. older in the way grief ages you faster than time ever could. We stood there, frozen between shelves of bread and cereal, surrounded by ordinary life that didn't care about our history. "I didn't know you still shopped here," she said. "I didn't know I'd ever see you again," I replied. She swallowed. "I think about you every day." I believed her, and somehow that didn't comfort me. "I loved you," she said. "I still do." I nodded slowly. "I loved who I thought you were." We stood in silence for a moment. "I hope you're okay," she said finally. "I am," I said, and for the first time it wasn't a lie. We walked away in opposite directions. No apology could fix what was broken between us. Some losses aren't meant to be repaired. They're meant to teach. Daniel tried one last time to reach me, a letter handwritten, left in my mailbox like a confession from another lifetime. He wrote about fear, loneliness, mistakes, how he never meant to hurt anyone, how he wished he could go back. I read it once, then I tore it up, not out of anger, out of clarity, because understanding someone's pain doesn't require carrying it for them. Slowly, life began to expand again. I started walking in the mornings, watching the city wake up. I noticed things I hadn't before, the way the bakery on the corner smelled like sugar and yeast, the way the same elderly man fed birds in the park every day at exactly 15. I repainted my bedroom. Soft, plum, clean. I donated the wedding dress. That was harder than I expected. My hands shook as I handed the bag over, but when it was done, I felt lighter, as if I'd returned something that never truly belonged to me. Friends invited me out again. Not out of pity, out of genuine care. Lotta returned, hesitant at first, then fuller. I wasn't the woman who got tricked anymore. I was just me. One evening months later, I sat alone on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sun sink low. The world felt steady again. Not perfect, just honest. I thought about how close I'd come to losing myself in someone else's lies, how easily trust can be weaponized, and how strength sometimes means walking away without demanding closure from people who never deserved access to your heart in the first place. I didn't regret loving. I didn't regret hoping. What I regretted was ignoring the small voice that whispered something isn't right, because it didn't fit the story I wanted. I promised myself I would listen next time, not with fear, but with respect. The truth has a way of settling into your bones long after the noise fades. By the time autumn arrived, the public part of the story had run its course. People had moved on to the next scandal, the next whisper. Daniel's name stopped coming up in conversation. Leela's absence became a quiet, permanent fact. But inside me, the reckoning was still unfolding, slowly, thoughtfully, in ways no one else could see. I realized then that betrayal doesn't end when the liar is exposed. It ends when you stop asking yourself what you could have done differently and start asking what you deserve next. One afternoon, I received an email from Daniel's first wife. Her name was Mara. She wrote simply, "I hope this isn't intrusive. I just wanted to say thank you for telling me the truth. It saved me years." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. We met for coffee a week later. No lawyers, no accusations. Just two women sitting across from each other, hands wrapped around warm mugs, united by the same deception. She was kinder than I expected. Stronger, too. "I kept thinking I was paranoid," she said. "He made me feel crazy for questioning him." I nodded. "He did the same to me." She smiled sadly. "Men like that survive on doubt. As long as we question ourselves, they don't have to answer." There was no bitterness in her voice, just clarity. When we stood to leave, she hugged me gently. "I hope you find happiness," she said. "I already have," I replied. And again, it was true. That winter, I did something I hadn't done in years. I said no. No to obligations that drained me. No to conversations that circled old pain. No to people who only showed up when they needed something. I started saying yes to quieter things. Yes to mornings without alarms. Yes to books left unfinished because I fell asleep reading. Yes to friendships that didn't require me to explain myself. There was power in that simplicity. One evening, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't expect. A message request from someone I didn't know. I think I was engaged to the same man it read. My stomach tightened. We spoke briefly. Compared timelines. Stories overlapped in familiar, sickening ways. "Another woman, another promise, another almost life. I just wanted you to know," she said. "You weren't alone." After we ended the conversation, I sat quietly, letting the weight of it settle. Daniel hadn't just betrayed me. He had made a habit of breaking women and calling it love. That knowledge didn't make me angry. It made me resolute. The final public consequence came without my involvement. Daniel's company let him go quietly. His reputation followed him like a shadow. Not because I chased revenge, but because truth is patient. It waits. And when it arrives, it doesn't need help doing its work. I never celebrated his downfall. I didn't need to. Justice doesn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it looks like freedom. Spring came, soft and unexpected. I planted flowers in my yard, things that came back every year without effort. Perennials, the woman at the nursery told me. They survive winters. So did I thought. One afternoon, as I knelt in the dirt, my neighbor leaned over the fence. "You seem lighter," she said. "Happier?" I smiled. She nodded knowingly. "Leaving the wrong people will do that." I didn't rush into dating. I wasn't afraid, but I wasn't hungry either. I took my time learning who I was without performance, without compromise that cost me my voice. When I finally did say yes to dinner with someone new, it felt calm. Easy, no fireworks, just presence, and that was enough. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see before. The worst part of that betrayal wasn't losing a husband or a friend. It was losing my sense of reality. Trusting again required me to forgive myself first, for believing, for hoping, for wanting a life built on love. I don't regret the wedding day anymore. It taught me how closely joy and grief can sit beside each other, and how strength often arrives dressed as heartbreak. Sometimes, late at night, I still remember Leela fixing my dress, her hands trembling, her voice breaking when she said, "Whatever happens, you're strong." She was right. She just didn't know how I'd need to be, and maybe neither did I. There's a strange moment that comes after deep betrayal when the pain stops screaming and starts whispering. That's where I found myself months later, standing in the kitchen one evening, washing a single plate, listening to the quiet drip of the faucet. No chaos, no confrontation, just the soft hum of a life that finally belonged to me again. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore. People assume healing looks like closure conversations and grand realizations. For me, it came in smaller ways. It came when I stopped checking my phone for messages that would never come. It came when I laughed without feeling guilty afterward. It came when I stopped telling my story like an apology. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for surviving. One afternoon, my niece came over. She was 10, all elbows and questions, sprawled across my couch with a notebook. "Auntie," she said, not looking up, "why don't you have wedding pictures up anymore?" I paused. How do you explain betrayal to someone who still believes love is always honest? "I had some pictures," I said slowly, "that didn't tell the truth about my life." She frowned. "Why would you keep them then?" I smiled softly. I didn't know they were lies yet. She considered that, then nodded. "Okay. Children understand more than we give them credit for." That I pulled out my old wedding album for the first time since packing it away. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, album heavy in my lap. Page by page, I looked not with longing, not with pain, but with distance. I noticed how often Lila's eyes followed Daniel, how often Daniel looked away from the camera, how still I looked, composed, careful. I wasn't naive, I was hopeful, and hope is never something to be ashamed of. I closed the album and placed it gently back into the box. Some chapters don't need to be erased to be finished. Around that time, people began sharing their stories with me, quiet confessions over coffee. Messages from friends of friends. Women who had stayed too long. Women who had ignored their instincts because love asked them to. "I thought I was stupid," one woman said. "You weren't," I replied. "You were trusting. There is a difference, and it matters." One evening I received a message I hadn't expected from Leela. Just a single line. "I hope you're well." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally knew what I didn't need to. I didn't respond. Silence, I'd learned, can be an answer without cruelty. The final piece of the story settled quietly into place the day I signed the last document connected to Daniel. No ceremony. No witnesses. Just a pen gliding across paper, sealing the end of a chapter that had tried to define me. As I handed the document back, the clerk smiled politely. "Take care," she said. "I am," I replied, and I meant it. That night, I cooked a meal just for myself, lit a candle, played soft music, ate slowly. I raised my glass, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement, to resilience, to clarity, to the woman I became because I refused to stay small inside someone else's lies. I used to think betrayal ruined people. Now I know it reveals them. It revealed Daniel's hunger. It revealed Leela's weakness, and it revealed my strength, not the loud kind, the steady kind. The kind that walks away without needing the last word. If you're listening to this and something in my story feels familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not foolish for believing in love. You are not weak for trusting someone who lied. And you are not broken because someone chose deception over honesty. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept that the life you imagined is no longer yours, and then build something truer in its place. I don't know where Daniel is now. I don't wonder. I don't replay the what-ifs. My story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with peace. And that, I've learned, is the kind of ending that lasts. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the day finally lets go of me, I sit with my thoughts and wonder how many of us are carrying stories we never planned to live. Not because we were careless. Not because we were foolish. But because we trusted someone who looked us in the eyes and promised safety. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: betrayal doesn't mean you failed. It means someone else chose convenience over character. And that choice was never yours to carry. I didn't lose my dignity when I married a lie. I found it when I walked away from one. There is a strength in choosing peace over explanation. In refusing to chase apologies that come too late. In letting go without turning bitter. And if you're listening to this right now with a tight chest, wondering whether you ignored signs, wondering whether you should have known better, I want you to hear me clearly. You loved honestly. You trusted bravely, and that is never something to be ashamed of. Life doesn't always give us the story we planned. But sometimes, it gives us a truer one, the kind that teaches us how to protect our hearts without closing them. So I'll leave you with this question, the same one I asked myself when everything fell apart. If the truth costs you the life you imagined, but gives you back yourself, would you still choose it? If my story touched you, if it reminded you that you're not alone, share your thoughts in the comments. I read them. I hold them with care. And if you want to hear more real stories about heartbreak, resilience, and finding your way back to yourself, stay with me. Subscribe. Sit a while, you're safe here.